What role do today's athletes need to play in social issues? Because we know there's still a long way to go, even though we've come so far.
Well, they need to feel an inherent obligation to educate themselves truly about the issues. That's about it. I think that today's athlete is incredibly courageous. They're not scared. They recognize the power that they have, and that recognition of that power that they have is a profound thing, because to know that you have a voice, that you can extend yourself in, whether it's through social media or other means where you're going to be able to disseminate a message that would be heard by the masses, and particularly the modern day professional athlete with the money, the riches, the wealth that they're able to accumulate and what have you. Those are all things that serve them well. The key is that when you utilize that power, you have to make sure that somebody isn't able to come along and strip you of that potency by being able to point out the insignificance of your words, because you may not have educated yourself on the issues to the degree that you should have. Me personally, when I think about this chair that I sit in, this is what I try to tell people all the time. My attitude is not that I need to know everything. I need to know enough to have a conversation so we can ultimately facilitate others who definitely need to be heard, because they're far more educated on certain issues than I would be. If I can instigate a conversation and I'm a provocateur of dialogue and thought, that opens the floodgates for others far more qualified than myself to come on board and to speak their truth, disseminate it to the masses, and therefore edify everybody involved. That's the role I believe that I play, and I've always thought about that throughout my entire career. It's knowing my position, it's educating myself to the best of my ability, but understanding I'm not the period to the sentence. I'm the first letter that might start the sentence or might start the dialogue on a few occasions, but I damn sure ain't the period. And understanding that, that's me trying to give what I can, so many others, far better than myself, far more worthy than myself, far more deserving of anything that I would have, those people can be heard. If you have that mindset as a professional athlete, if you have that mindset as a voice, as somebody that has an audience, and you have a message to disseminate to the masses, it can go a very, very, very long way. But it starts with you focusing on something beyond yourself to serve the greater good. That's the role that athletes should always be committed to playing, not just when real flagrant things happen, like the George Floyd murder, like Colin Kaepernick taking a knee and things of that nature. There are a multitude of things that transpire in our society on a day-to-day basis that if you're educated enough, you can speak on and enlighten the masses about, and it will go a long way.
Stephen A., let me call an audible here, because I have a question that just came to mind, which you weren't able to prepare for. Not that you ever need to prepare ahead of time for anything. But if there could be one rule or just one thing changed in sports today, in any sport right now, what would you like to see implemented?
I would like to see more black ownership. Because if you have more black ownership, you have diversity in the room. And when you have diversity in the room, those who are, dare I say, behind the times, that wish that we were living in a different time, that doesn't want to educate themselves about different people coming from different cultural backgrounds and things of that nature, you wouldn't be able to avoid those confrontations. And when you're not able to avoid those confrontations, you have to stand up and answer for those things, and I'd love that.
Yeah, not just the laborers' seat at the table. I promised you Angela Rye, and here she is. Angela, I'm sorry, your time is a little bit cut short, but we've been teasing you all show, so grateful to have you. Thank you for your patience. Angela, tell me this. What role do today's athletes need to play in social issues?
Well, first, I think we really have to just take a step back. And thankfully, Stephen A. and I are on one accord from what I heard. He said a lot of what I certainly agree with. But I really think it's important for us to understand where Jackie Robinson was, the female Jackie Robinson, as she was known, Althea Gibson, for breaking the color barrier in sports, making history in that way. And now what I think we really need to be talking about, not just with athletes and entertainers, but really with all of us, even those of you who are sitting at home, what is incumbent upon us to do now that barriers have been broken? And not all of them, because we all know that just earlier this month, we witnessed yet another police shooting, another Black man who lost his life at the hands of police. So there are barriers that have been broken. Jim Crow may not be the law of the land, but what remnants of those things still exist? What do we expect of athletes and other leaders in society to do to ensure that the barrier isn't just broken for them, but it's broken for all of us? How do we begin to deal with racial injustice in ways that are actually violent still? We're talking about years later. We're talking about Dr. King, who went to Memphis, lost his life in Memphis in 1968 to stand with the Memphis sanitation workers as they marched holding signs that said, "I am a man." That affirmation is one that still folks are have to fight for. When folks say Black Lives Matter, when we get to the point where Black Lives Matter isn't an argument, it's an affirmation that we all can accept, that's when we know we've arrived. And so what's expected of athletes is no different from what's expected of all of us, and that is to be courageous. That is to understand that it's not just going into a league or going into the door of your office and making history. Jackie Robinson was not new to activism. He was not new when he started officer candidate school and black soldiers and all of that. When he went into the minor leagues, then the major leagues, we have to practice every day when nobody's watching. And I think that's where change begins.
Absolutely, and continue to always tell his story. Sorry, we're cut short here, Angela. We're out of time, up against a commercial break, but thank you so much. We will talk to you again soon. Appreciate all that context.